Welcome, folks. We're sharing with you today from Inclusive Education Canada. And Inclusive Education Canada website you can access, as well as our second website called Source for Inclusive Education. And today we want to share with you outcomes from a report we completed this spring called Pushed Out: The Harmful Effects of Partial Day Schooling, and a subsequent guideline for families called Challenging Partial Day Schooling, and the kind of things that families can do to advocate for their child and end this phenomena that's happening far too often in our country. Now, Inclusive Education Canada works across the country. The three people you see on your screen are all part of Inclusive Education Canada. I'm Gordon Porter,
I'm Charlotte Pike.
I'm Andrea Cameron.
and we want to talk to you today, particularly about partial day schooling. And we know that many families are being affected by this. It's something we didn't hear much about 15, 20 years ago when inclusion was being implemented in many parts of the country. But the more inclusion is taken to be a standard, seemingly schools think that if they can't make it work successfully with what they think are their reasonable procedures, then they simply ask the child to stay home. And this, of course, has detrimental effects not only on the child, but on the family. And it's this phenomena that we want to explore today. And I'm going to pass over now to Andrea, who's going to share some thoughts on why inclusion itself matters. Andrea, can you reflect on that for a few moments with us?
Thanks, Gordon. So, inclusive education matters because all children deserve to learn together, to feel welcome, valued, and to have the same learning opportunities. When children with disabilities learn and play alongside their classrooms, they build confidence and form friendships. They also have the same chances to learn as everybody else. We are finding that parents are often needing to speak up now to make sure their child has this opportunity to be included and to get the support that they need. And we do this as parents. We're advocating because we know that every child has equal worth and they all deserve to be in school and to have the same opportunity for an education. We know that with children with disabilities are able to learn in the same classroom as their peers, that they benefit socially, emotionally, and academically. We also know that when teachers are supported and when they have the right tools, that inclusion is very successful for everyone, which leads to the point that inclusion, the research shows inclusion and inclusive classrooms benefit all students, that instruction is elevated for everyone. And most importantly, we know that inclusive education is a human right, a basic human right that is for all children internationally. Over to you, Charlotte.
So, in order to write this report and then create the guideline, we had to do a survey to collect the data. So, we created a short, easy to use survey for families whose children were allowed to only go to school on a partial day condition or conditional school attendance in general. The goal was to hear directly from parents about what was happening, how it affected their child, and what support they needed. So we gathered responses from families across the country. They all responded and they offered honest accounts of their experiences. We then carefully read every response. We looked for common patterns, repeated concerns, and shared experiences. We also noted examples that illustrated the impact of reduced school hours on learning, behavior, mental health, and family life. Many families provided specific situations, so how partial day schooling disrupted their child's routine, limited learning, affected friendships, or even created stress at home. These stories helped us to understand the real world consequences behind the numbers. So we identified the impact for families, children, and schools. We then developed key findings and generalizations. Lastly, we created the guideline document. So we used everything that we learned. So our survey results, our family stories, and the themes that emerged We developed the guidelines for families. So this document gives parents clear information, practical steps, and guidance to support their child's right to a full and inclusive school day.
Thanks, Charlotte. So, what are the reasons that schools are citing for partial day schooling? So, when parents were asked this question, these were the reasons that they told us. So, the most common reason was behavior and safety. So, schools often would call families in these circumstances, and then sometimes that would lead to a longer term plan of partial day schooling. Families felt overall that disability related causes for behavior were not recognized and supported. That was a very common experience. Many parents reported feeling blamed that their child was choosing to misbehave. And they felt often that even if the good intentions were there, that schools, teachers were lacking the training, often lacking the staff or support needed to help their child. And they found too, parents have reported that some schools were using partial day schooling for their child because of bullying or code of conduct policies to justify those partial days. And many parents raised concerns about the seclusion rooms, segregation, and even sometimes threats to call the police or child protection on their child. One-on-one support was sometimes provided, but what we found overall is that was um, often very temporary, and sometimes it would be removed as soon as the child started doing better. And so it would be pulled back, that support, due to budget constraints or cited budget constraints. Temporary partial day schooling was sometimes implemented as well. And what parents reported was it was very rarely temporary, that it often became permanent. And finally, the lack of resources for families to advocate was a really significant factor, and that families felt they had no choice but to accept the partial day policy.
So, how does partial day schooling impact students and families? Well, kids often feel lonely, anxious, or embarrassed about leaving school early. Many start to believe they can't learn or don't even belong at school. Being away from classmates makes friendships harder and increases isolation. Missing class time leads to real learning gaps that can last for years. Some children show signs of stress, sadness, or even talk about hurting themselves. Families face major stress just trying to manage work, childcare, and constant school changes. Parents often feel they must fight every day just to get their child included. Financial strain grows when parents cut work hours, lose on income, or have to pay for childcare. The pressure can take a toll on the family life, routines, and mental health. A parent shared with us that, quote, I was a single mother with no local support. I went on disability leave because I was afraid I'd lose my job, and I lost it anyway. Quote.
Okay, that's sort of setting the context. Now we want to review the guideline for families in more detail. We want to discuss some of the options, some of the things that you might do if faced with this challenge. Even when things feel overwhelming, families are not alone. When a school suggests a partial day schedule, parents deserve clear information, practical options, and support they can count on. Based on what we've learned from families across Canada, we've gathered some guidance to help you understand your rights, ask the right questions, and work with the school to find better solutions for your child. Here's what you can do and what you should expect when partial day schooling comes up as an option.
Okay, so the first thing is to secure support. So reach out to your provincial or territorial Inclusion Canada Association. They're there to listen, guide, and help you find the right resources. Connecting with other parents who've been through similar situations can also bring comfort, ideas, and a sense of community. Number two, document, keep records, and speak out. Keep notes on early pickups or partial day schedules so that you have a clear picture of what's happening. Check school and department policies. If something doesn't line up, share your concerns with the school. Bring a friend, advocate, or ally to meetings and keep simple notes. If you need to appeal a decision, don't hesitate to ask for help. Number 3, support your child's inclusion in the community. So encourage your child's participation in community activities. These are great places to learn and feel connected. When your child is welcomed in the community, it reinforces that they deserve the same sense of belonging at school too.
Okay, number 4, learn what you can about inclusive education. So this doesn't mean that parents have to become experts, but if you can learn what good inclusion looks like so that you can advocate for that for your child, that can be really helpful. And we have the resources that Gordon mentioned earlier, the source for inclusive education, that website has some excellent information and is a great place to start. Number 5, encourage learning for the teachers and school staff. So you can ask your school, what are they doing to train staff in inclusive practices? And you can also suggest us, Inclusive Education Canada and Inclusion Canada, or your provincial territorial association as trusted sources for workshops and support. We're here to help families and schools solve this complex problem. And so definitely reach out in that way. Number 6, advocate for policy change. So if you're able, talk with your school leaders or your MLA, MHA, or MNA about the importance of full day schools and real inclusion. If that feels like too much, your local parent association can stand with you and help guide you in the process. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There's often people in your community who are advocating for the same things. So if you can find them and connect, that can be helpful. Speak up for policies that protect students' right to be at school all day, not the ones that allow partial day programs.
Finally, number 7, share your story to raise awareness. Your experience matters. Sharing it at a community meeting, online, or in a campaign helps others understand what partial day exclusion really feels like for families. Focus on how the situation affected your child and your family. Avoid naming the school or the staff. Personal stories can spark understanding and build support for change, helping others see why full inclusion is so important. Finally, to wrap up, every child deserves to be welcomed, included, and supported at school all day, every day. And families play a powerful role in making that happen. Your voice, your questions, and your courage matter. When families speak up and support one another, real change becomes possible. You can find our guideline for families on partial day school attendance on the Inclusive Education Canada website, and we encourage you to follow our work, explore new resources, and stay connected. And don't forget to visit our Source for Inclusive Education website, where you'll find practical tools, helpful information, and stories that can guide and inspire you as we work together to make schools truly inclusive for every student. Thank you for listening to this presentation, and we hope you'll find value in the guideline that we have discussed today. Thank you.